Oh, no, it should be live. Okay. Halacha Chassidus, welcome. Thank you for coming. Wednesday night Halacha Chassidus. We're going to start with halacha. The topic for this week halacha is Melave Malka. I don't really have any specific questions about Melave Malka. I don't have any specific concerns here, but I thought we would just learn about some of the general ideas of Melave Malka, and hopefully that will inspire us to have a nice, juicy Melave Malka. So we're going to start on the source sheets here. We have two Gemaras for Masechta Shabbos, just a couple pages apart. We're going to start on Masechta Shabbos daf Kuf Yud Zayin Omud Beis at the end. And it's talking about what the Gemara is talking. It's starting to explain part of the Mishnah that discusses what to do if, God forbid, there's a fire and you need to rescue food for Shabbos. You don't want, if there's a fire, you can't put out the fire because that's Chilul Shabbos, but you want to get some food. So what are you allowed to take legally, halachically, on Shabbos? So the Mishnah says you could rescue for, well, let's take a look. So the Gemara says here, Tanu Rabbanan, how many su'udos, how many meals is a person required to eat on Shabbos? Shalish, 3. But Reb Chidka Oimer, Arba. No, not 3, but actually 4 meals on Shabbos. Where do they get that from? Why does one say 3 and the other says 4? Well, amazingly, they both say it comes from the same exact pasuk, which Hashgacha Pratis happens to be in this week's parsha. So where does it come from? Rabbi Yochanan says both of them darshan, they interpret, they derive their opinion of either 3 or 4 meals on Shabbos from the very same pasuk this week, Parshas B'Shalach, which says, "Vayomer Moshe ichlu hayom." Moshe says, "Eat it today, ki Shabbos hayom laHashem." Today is a Shabbos for Hashem. Hayom lo simtzeu b'asada. Today you won't find it in the field, therefore you have to take it in advance. So what do we see from this pasuk? Chidko holds hayoim. The 3 times that it says the word hayoim in the pasuk, it's in one pasuk. It says hayoim today 3 times. He says that those 3 meals are levar me'urta, in exclusion of the evening meal. That means 3 meals other than the evening meal. So he's assuming, or rather, since Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking on Shabbos morning, that means he already had the evening meal. And he's saying, hayoim, 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 today, today, today. That's 3 meals. But he's speaking to the Jewish people in the morning. Vayimar Moshe, he's speaking in the morning. So he already had the night meal. It's not including that. So 3 plus 1 is 4. So that's according to the Pechitko, why you have 4 meals. But the Rabbanan who say 3, how do they get it from the pasuk? Simple. That when it says the 3 words hayoim today 3 times, that includes the evening meal. That's it. So either way, and we're going to get to later, what's this? We'll hopefully get to later. A little bit this seemingly, it's either 3 meals or 4 meals, which obviously the 4th is going to be the Melave Malka, as we're going to see. But so that's the machlekes in the Gemara: 3 meals or 4 meals. Now, if we fast forward to the next source over here, 2 pages later in the Gemara, Daf Kuf Yud Tes Omud Beis, it says as follows. Where is it? Omer Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, on the end of the first line here on the source sheets, a person should make sure to set their table on Erev Shabbos. Don't wait till Shabbos. Set it on Erev Shabbos. Even if you're only planning on eating an olive's amount of food, meaning you're not even going to eat a full, a full presentation, a full meal. You're going to eat only a little bit. Nevertheless, you should set your table as if you were going to be having a big feast. The Omer Rebbe Chanina, and Rebbe Chanina continues, Lo olam yisad Ram Shulchan b'motzoi Shabbos. Just like we're setting the table Erev Shabbos for Shabbos, we should also set our table Motzei Shabbos as well. Even though you only plan on eating a small amount of food, but set it as if it's for a big feast. We might as well say the next part of the Gemara as well. Chamin b'motzei Shabbos, hot water, having hot water. I think there's a minute to have a cup of tea, a cup of warm tea on Motzei Shabbos. So the Gemara says Chamin b'motzei Shabbos melugmo. Melugmo means like it's like a remedy. Okay, so you should have a cup of hot tea on Motzei Shabbos. Pas chama b'motzei Shabbos, warm bread, hot bread on Motzei Shabbos, also melugma. It's also a remedy. It's also a good thing. Whether you have to bake the bread or you just have to heat it up. So to demonstrate the importance of the Motzei Shabbos meal, they would prepare for Rabbi Abo a igla tilsa, a third-born calf, which is apparently a delicacy, even though even though he only ate a kulyasa, a kidney, meaning he ate a small amount. So they shechted an entire igla tilsa, this third-born calf, which was considered a delicacy, even though he only ate a small amount. When his son Avimi got older and grew up, he said to his father, why are you making such a waste? Meaning you shechted the whole animal. You're only eating a little bit. So why go to all that expense? Nishbay kulyasa, the son says, Nishbay kulyasa, memayla shabsa. Just leave over a kidney from Erev Shabbat, from the previous day. What do you need to go to the extent to shecht a whole other animal for? Leave over a little bit from what you anyway had from before earlier from Shabbos. Leave that over from Motzei Shabbos. So that makes sense. So they decided, okay, we'll do that. We'll leave it over. Shavkuhu. They left over the calf and they didn't slaughter it. Ve'osa arya ochla. And a lion came along and ate it. So the son asks, Tati, why are you going to the expense to shecht a new animal in Motzei Shabbos? That's a pretty big job, no? You got to shecht it, you got to salt it, you got to butcher it, and so on and so forth.
Time consuming.
It's time consuming. And he's only eating a small amount of it. Says the son, perfectly logical thing. What are you doing it for? Just leave a little bit over from the calf that you shechted, or whatever it was that you ate Erev Shabbat, that you shechted Erev Shabbos. Leave some of that and we'll have that. It's logical, made sense, so they left it over. Or they did not shech this animal, this igla tilsa, this third-born calf. And anyway, it was gone anyway. A lion came and ate it. So what do you see from that Gemara? I think what you see is that there's no reason to be stingy, if you will, regarding Shabbos. Shech the animal, it's fine. You're eating a little bit, you're eating a lot. Doesn't really matter. One way it's going to come or go, one way or the other. So that's not the point of the Gemara. It's not why I brought the Gemara here. I brought the Gemara because of Rebbe Chanina's statement that Lo Olam Yisad Adam Shulchan b'Motzei Shabbos. The Rebbe Chanina says, and we're going to see this in the Shulchan Aruch in the next simon, we're going to read it in just a second. You should set your table in Motzei Shabbos in a kovedik way, in a dignified manner, even though you may only plan on eating a little bit. Now, why would you plan on only eating a little bit?
You're not hungry?
That could be one reason you're not hungry anymore. Because you had a big Suda Shalishis, maybe. Or maybe you had a big daytime, you had your Kiddush Farbrengen went for a long time, and you had a big day Suda, and then you're mamish not hungry at all. That could be one reason that you don't plan on eating a lot. Another reason possibly could be is that you're a pauper. You don't have enough money. You already spent all your money for Shabbos meal, plus tuition and electricity bill and everything else. You don't have a lot of money left over, maybe. That could be another reason why you would only plan on eating a small amount, perhaps. Okay, Ad Khan, these are the two Gemaras that I wanted to share with you. So number one, we see either you're supposed to eat 3 or maybe 4 Sudas on Shabbos. And number two, we should go out of our way to set the table for Motzei Shabbos, for the meal that we call Melave Malka. Oh, let's see the Rashi also on the Gemara over here. But Motzei Shabbos, Nami Kovad Shabbos, Lalavas B'tziyosei, Derech Kovad, Lalavas B'tziyosei. So Rashi is saying that it's kovad, right? We have 2 mitzvahs by Shabbos. There's kovad and oinig. Oinig Shav, the general distinction that's explained, the difference between kovad honoring Shabbos, versus oinig, the pleasure of Shabbos. In general, the distinction is said to be that kavod takes place before Shabbos. It's part of the preparation for Shabbos, whereas oinig takes place on Shabbos. So says Rashi that nami kavod Shabbos the lavos b'tziyosai. It's kavod Shabbos. It's respectful for Shabbos, just like we set the table before Shabbos, and that's the mitzvah of kavod Shabbos. We're honoring Shabbos by preparing for her. So too, at the end of Shabbos, we're also honoring Shabbos by escorting. As Rashi continues, derech kavod ke'odam hamelave es hamelech b'tzeiso mino'ir. It's kavod. It's respectful, like a person who escorts the king when the king is leaving the city.
What does that have to do with food? I mean, just setting the table, what does that have to do with?
That's an interesting question. Some are actually saying, I didn't put any of the sources on the source sheet, I don't think, that you should set the table for Motzei Shabbos even if you're not going to eat.
That's covered for...
Meaning, if for whatever, meaning, we know you're supposed to eat Melave Malka. Fine. Let's say you're not going to eat it. Right. Either you're completely full or you have no money, no food left in the pantry, or whatever. Yeah. But according to what we're saying now, it's covered Shabbos to set the table. You should do it even if there's no food, even if you're not eating for whatever reason. Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Shulchan Aruch or Chaim Siman Shin. Now I saw brought down. I am blanking now where it was. I meant to put it on the source sheet, but I forgot. Let's leave it aside. I'll come back to this. Siman Shin. Siman Shin. Sheyasad shulchan b'motzei Shabbos. You should set your table on Motzei Shabbos. Uboisif echad. One little halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. One little halacha, which says. And here we're going to see, straight from our Gemara, Masechta Shabbos, a person should set their table on Motzei Shabbos. Why? In order to escort the Shabbos, even if you only plan on eating a small amount of food. Just like Rabbi Abahu, only eating a small amount, but still went in a nice way to escort the Shabbos with the Melave Malka meal. Now, that's the Shulchan Aruch. That's it. One halacha. Let's look at the Magen Avram next. On the right side over here, we have the end of the Taz on the left side. It's a little bit longer, so for the sake of time, we left the Taz for now. We'll read the Magen Avram on the right side. B'Gemara, in the Gemara Masechta Shabbos Kuf Yud Tes base that we just read together. Mashma. It's indicated from the Gemara. The Nochel Lavashal Boser b'Motzei Shabbos. It's good to cook meat. Where do we see that from the Gemara? Rabbi Bo, they cooked the meat. So what's with all the pizza Melave Malkas? I don't know. Or cooked something else. Pizza? I don't know. Okay, it was manenu. In our day and age, I don't know what's exactly our days, but we'll see. People are accustomed to eating the Sudas Shlishis, the third meal, late on Shabbos afternoon. And what happens is then, they're full. Who wants to sit down for another meal? I just had Suda Shlishis. We went and davened Ma'ariv, and now I'm supposed to wash and have another meal? I'm full. I don't want to have Melave Malka. So the Magen Avram says this is very common, apparently. In that case, you could eat fruit instead. Obviously, you could have mazonos if you want, fruit, etc.
But you should have something. Just
something. Correct. And the next Magen Avram, actually, we had a class on that about folding the talis. Here, he brings from the Ma'aril, talis shel Shabbos. Remember that? Remember we had a class on that about folding the talis. So here's from the Ma'aril that he folded his talis once Shabbos. Okay, that's not our topic tonight. Okay, good. It's okay so far? Let's turn the page and take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan.
What is the folding the talis? Doing a mitzvah right away have to do with this? Because you're doing a mitzvah right away? Is that what it is?
That's a good question. What it has to do with that? So it's a Motzei Shabbos activity. Motzei Shabbos. Because again, that's the whole discussion. You can't fold your talis on Shabbos. Or I don't want to say you can't, but it's more...
it's complicated. It's got creases on it. If you have no creases, they're not really folding, right? In other words, I put my talis in the washing machine. Came out with, there's no there's no indentation of anything when you fold
The
it.
creases.
So that's an issue, though. If you fold it on.
So we had a whole class on it. Yeah, it's there are definitely hatarim to fold, and some people don't fold on fold their towels on Shabbos for this very reason.
Okay.
Let's take a look at Aruch HaShulchan. It's the same Siman Shin. Rabim eim nizhorim b'seuda zu. Many people are not so careful about having a Melave Malka meal, which one of them sources, I don't remember where it was exactly, notes that that's what. Look, remember in the Shulchan Aruch Siman Shin, how many halachas in that Siman? One. Just stick it in the previous Siman. So I saw one. I don't remember. I think I don't remember what it was. Oh, you know, I think it's here in the Shmir Shabbos Kolchos. I think brings it. Yeah, in the Sefer Yalkut HaGershuni, he brings. He says that since, as the Aruch HaShulchan points out, that Rabim ein nizharim b'seuda zu, many people are not so careful about this meal of Melave Malka. Therefore, the Yalkut HaGershuni brings shalakach osu atur v'mechaber al sudas Melave Malka siman miyuchad. That's why the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch made a separate siman, a separate section in Shulchan Aruch just for Melave Malka, l'fishayedu, so that you should know. Wow, it's a whole section in Shulchan Aruch. So you should know she'ein oil ben nizharim bazeh. And right, so they wanted to point out, guys, this is very important. So let's make an entire section of Shulchan Aruch. That's what he brings. That's brought in the Shmir Shabbos Kolchos, one of the footnotes there. Okay, let's go back to the Aruch HaShulchan. Many people are not so cautious, but if you do fulfill this suda, your reward is great. And everyone who fears Hashem, make sure they're going to do it. Okay, for the sake of time, let's skip a little bit. It's getting later than I realized. He brings also, by the way, we saw in the Magen Avram before, that if you're full, because you already had Suda Shalishis late, etc., what should you eat instead? Fruit, perot. Here, the Aruch HaShulchan brings, on the fifth line, you're not able to eat bread. I'm stuffed. I can't eat bread. You have mezonos, ubeperos, and fruit. Okay. Interestingly, also another point is interesting. If your Suda Shlishis was a Geschmack Fabrengen, and it went an hour, 2 hours after Shabbos was already over, as that happens in yeshivas, Baruch Hashem, sometimes. If your Fabrengen continued, and now already at nighttime, you ate a kazayis of bread, do you have to, after Ma'ariv and after Avdallah, wash and have another Suda Melave Malka? Aruch HaShulchan says no. Gam Sudas Melave Malka. That will do double duty of also the Melave Malka. How common is that? For most of us, probably not so common, but that is the halach anyway. Let's take a look now in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It's going to be all familiar to us. Set your table Motzei Shabbos. B'chol, here gets more details. B'chol minei sidur hanuhugim etzlei ba'arichas hashulchan l'suda gemura. Spells it out. Exactly the way you would set the table for a full feast. Even though afal pi sha'achshav lo yachol l'kazayis. Even though you're only eating a little bit, you're not so hungry. Why are you only eating a little bit, only a small amount? Hey, you ran out of food, you don't have any more. The pantry is empty. Or hey, maybe it's not hungry anymore. Nevertheless, again, that's related to setting the table Erev Shabbos too. There's a hachana, preparation, besidur shulchan, setting the table properly, kegoin, prisas mapa, spreading a nice table, etc. That you're setting the table and you're honoring the Shabbos and escorting the Shabbos at the conclusion of Shabbos exactly as you would at the beginning of Shabbos. Okay, good. Okay, good. Now let's take a look. Hashgacha Pratis. I was reading a Sikha of the Rebbe earlier this week from Tavshin Lamed Daled, 1974, Yud Shvat, Parshas B'Shalach. And in that year, in 1974, the calendar was exactly the same as it is now. So that year, Yud Shvat was Shabbos, and this Farbrengen is the Motzei Shabbos Farbrengen. And the Rebbe starts by speaking about Melave Malka. And he brought an interesting point, so I thought we would share this interesting point. So he says, Echad Azmani on the fourth line. There's something called an Eis Ratzon. An Eis Ratzon means it's an auspicious time. One such example of an auspicious time is Motzei Shabbos. Every Motzei Shabbos. So, what is so special? Huh?
What is it? Oh.
You have it?
Oh.
You have it?
Sorry.
What is so special about Motzei Shabbos? Well, we know. We just learned it inside Shulchan Aruch, in the Gemara in the Shulchan Aruch. Isa b'Shulchan Aruch. It says in the Shulchan Aruch. Where? Siman Shin. How many halachas in Siman Shin? One. Motzei Shabbos tzarich l'lavos es Shabbos. Shabbos HaMalka. You have to escort the queen, escort the Shabbos. Kadesh HaMalavin es HaMelech. Just like you escort the king. B'vur b'zeh. She'etzim mitzius hazman afilu l'loi pe'ula. Interesting. No, I'm coming to your question or near. Did you have to even eat anything? She'etzim mitzius hazman. The very existence of the time. Afilu l'loi pe'ula. Even if you don't do anything in that time, it's already an Eis Ratzon. It's already auspicious. Even if you don't make a Melave Malka. Even if you don't do anything. The very nature of Motzei Shabbos is an auspicious time. Why? What's auspicious? What's so special about the time of Motzei Shabbos? That's the intermediary. That's the bridge that connects Shabbos, the sanctity of Shabbos. The Motzei Shabbos is the bridge that connects the sanctity of Shabbos with the weekday. So that in and of itself is an auspicious time. And in this regard, there's actually something better about Motzei Shabbos than Shabbos. A little bit of a chiddush over here. How so? How could we possibly say that Motzei Shabbos has an advantage over Shabbos? Where does that come from? On the day of Shabbos itself, you're not allowed to work, as we know. Not allowed to even prepare food or cook food on Shabbos. And there's all sorts of regulations what you are allowed to do with food on Shabbos, what you're not allowed to do with it. Can't turn on lights and so on and so forth. So therefore, the pleasure, the delight, the enjoyment of Shabbos is only, quote unquote, only found in the things that don't involve work. Because you can't do work on Shabbos. See, anything on Shabbos, the sanctity, the kedusha of Shabbos only stretches so far, so to speak. It has a limit of how far it goes. It can only be in an area of kedusha. It cannot be translated and brought into an area of work. Why? Because on Shabbos you can't work. Comes Motzei Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos is not Shabbos anymore. The chidush, the novelty, the accomplishment of Motzei Shabbos is that through Motzei Shabbos we grab onto the holiness of Shabbos, including the oinig, the pleasure of Shabbos, and we grab onto it, we bring it into Inyonei Choil, we bring it into the mundane week, and even into the work, into the melacha, the things we're not allowed to do on Shabbos, etc. So there's an advantage in Motzei Shabbos. And how far does this advantage go? To the extent that there's even an advantage in eating on Motzei Shabbos, even over eating on Shabbos. Eating on Shabbos, of course, is the mitzvah of oinig Shabbos, of enjoying and the pleasure of Shabbos. So it says the Rebbe here in this 1974 Farbrengen, Shabbos Yud Shvat Parshas B'Shalach, again exactly as it will be this year. There's an advantage of having a meal on Motzei Shabbos that even transcends the meals of Shabbos itself. What is that? Kedisa b'medrash. There's a famous medrash. This is a very, very well-known medrash that says, sheyesh etzem echad ba'adam u'shmoi luz. There's a certain bone in a human being, and it's called the luz bone. Shemimenu nivna gufa adam b'tchias hamesim. That bone will never be destroyed. It can't be crushed. It can't be burned, and so on and so forth. It doesn't decompose. And when tchias hamesim, when the time for the resurrection of the dead comes, the person's body will be rebuilt from that luz bone. Okay, it says this is connected to a yortzeit. This is a farbrengen for the yortzeit. Yud Shvat, the yortzeit of the previous Rebbe. And this bone is sustained, is nourished, if you will, from the Motzoi Shabbos meal, the Melave Malka.
This is all part of the medrash, just comment.
The first part was the medrash. Now the Rebbe is explaining the medrash. Because the luz itself is like Melave Malka. What's the connection? The luz bone is also the bridge that connects. How so? It's that bridge, it's that one bone that is able to connect the soul to the body. And from there, the body is rebuilt. So it's the bridge to, number one, rebuilding the body in the time of the resurrection of the dead. And number two, then the soul should be able to go back into the body. So the luz bone is an intermediary of types. It's a bridge of sorts. And that's what the Melave Malka is also. So in that regard, there's actually an advantage over Melave Malka meal over all the Shabbos meals. It's just a regular bone. Okay, as the Medrash discusses the bone at length, that it can't be crushed, it can't be burned, and so on and so forth. That therefore the bone, which is an actual bone, requires some type of physical sustenance as well, since it itself is physical. And that is the Melave Malka meal. Questions, comments?
Is this from Gemara or it's Midrashim about the bone?
That's a midrash. The bone is about the bone being sustained by the meal after Shabbat and Melave Malka. That's midrash.
No, but the whole idea about this bone,
Yeah, that's from the midrash.
but doesn't see anything about it in Gemara.
No, it's from the midrash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, any other comments, questions about Melave Malka?
No.
So, Melave Malka, important meal. Has its own section in the Shulchan Aruch dedicated just to this mitzvah. We didn't get to the 3 of the 4 meals, but okay, another time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to some Chassidus. We have a couple copies here. Please feel free to look on. We're continuing the Maamer. Those are all the same. Yeah, those are a couple different English versions, translations of it. In Derech Mitzvah Secha, it's in English, and it has the Hebrew Nikudot in there as well. Yeah, but I could point it to you if you want to find the place. What page is it? I don't know what page is in that book.
What's the?
We are right now continuing the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel.
Get me glasses, okay?
I've given this. In this, what page is it on here?
I don't know what page it is there. Let's try to figure this out. We have too many different versions.
This recording will be available then? On the.
Yeah.
When will it be available? When will it be available? When it's available.
Soon. We have a live stream on YouTube right now. So to the best of my knowledge, those of you in there in YouTube land could be watching right now. And we want to. And there will also be the audio only recording will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that kind of stuff.
What's that? What's that? I think I had the previous one.
It's there.
We're talking about the little gun cancer too.
Yeah, I think so. Here, right there. Okay, so we are learning a mitzvah of the Tzemach Maamer of the Tzemach Tzedek. This Sefer Derech Tzvisecha is takes, I don't know how many mitzvahs there are in here. 30 or 40 or so, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives us an explanation and understanding of the mitzvah according to Chassidus. So we started already the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel. And we're going to continue. We kind of left off in the middle of something last time, but we're going to continue. So we asked the question at the beginning of the Maamer. Why does the Rizal in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, why does he write that before tefillah, before davening, we should accept upon ourselves, we should even recite and say the words, Hareini mekabel olai, I hereby accept upon myself, mitzvah saseshel v'ahavta l'recha kamoicha, the positive mitzvah of loving your neighbor as yourself. It's a nice thing to do. It's a very nice thing to do. But why do I have to say that before davening? What is the connection to davening? So we started to explain that the Jewish people, and we brought in some Kabbalah and so on and so forth, the Jewish people are compared to a body, a unit, where you cannot say that your right hand and your left hand are different.
Independent.
They're not independent. They're all, they are different, obviously, but they're not part of a different body. They're both part of the same body. They're part of one unit. And even though a person could live, God forbid, without a hand, could live without it, but you would be, not you, nobody here, chas v'shalom, would be lacking. You would be deficient. You'd have a blemish. You'd be incomplete. Could you live? Sure, you could live. You would just be incomplete. So he says, so to the Jewish people, Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people are like a body. We're like a body. And there's different parts of the body. There's a head, there's hands, there's feet, there's a nose, etc., etc. And we are all part of this greater body, so to speak, a greater unit, where we're all interconnected. And he points out that we literally are interconnected. If you think about the mashal, the analogy of the body, the veins are going through our body, and the veins bring blood through every part, from the lowest extremity to all the way back up to the brain. From all the way down from your little pinky toe up to your brain. It's all, and the blood goes through all of them equally. So it's total interconnectedness. And that's going to explain why, the Tzemach Tzedek says, why we are told to accept this mitzvah before we begin davening. That we can truly dedicate and give ourselves over to Hashem. That we could be able to ascend properly, spiritually, and connect to Hashem at the time of Kishma and other times too. But the problem is, you cannot have this aliyah, you cannot ascend in this manner to connect to Hashem if you're unhealthy, if you're sick, if you're missing something.
Even physically, physical.
Spiritually. Spiritually, yes. Spiritually, very much so. Dahainu, meaning, he's going to explain a little bit more. Dahainu. You have to be sensing yourself, aware of yourself, that you include all the other neshamas within you. There's a total interconnectedness. That the health of one part of the body is dependent on the health of other parts of the body. Right? We know a holistic picture of health doesn't just mean that take care of one part of your body. Eat healthy food. It's very important. But so is getting good sleep. And so is exercising. And so many other factors as well. There's not one thing in particular that we do. So if a person had, God forbid, a problem with their hand, God forbid, it could affect the whole body. Or we see the most, that I can think of at least, that I'm aware of, I should say, the most glaring example of this is how the digestive system affects a person's mood. Right? It's well known. I don't know if it's well known, but there's something called the second brain. And the second brain is your digestive system. And I think I mentioned this maybe last week, I heard from a GI doctor once, an expert GI doctor, that if a person has, God forbid, serious, or not, maybe not even so serious, digestive issues, he told me most likely it's going to affect their mood. Almost for sure. It will affect the way they feel. Nothing to do with their stomach hurting or whatever it may be. It affects their mood. because we're all interconnected. So you cannot say one hand has nothing to do with the other hand. One foot has nothing to do with the other foot. It's all interconnected, and without any particular part of the body, we got a problem. Chas v'shalom. So too spiritually, if we're going to, God forbid, push aside a part of our own body. I love the Jewish people except for that guy. Just one guy. And he deserves it, or he's a jerk. Oh, I didn't say that. Chas v'shalom. So then we are, in a sense, making ourselves incomplete, God forbid. That when we're sholim, on the other hand, when we're complete, when we're whole, we can then truly ascend and come closer to Hashem.
What's the Ahavas? What is it?
Kulon ke'echad mamish, as one. Since my neshama, my soul, actually has included within it the souls of all the other Jewish people as well. So we can ascend back to our source, to connect to Hashem, who is the source of all of our neshamas, of all of our souls. And this inclusiveness is is when we can truly be connected to Hashem, when we not just think, not just feel, but actually behave and act in such a way, as he says, we act this way, physically we act this way, that I love another Jew. Just like my limbs, just like I love my hand. I don't love my right hand more than I love my left hand, even though I'm a righty. And I use my right hand more. I rely on my right hand more, but I don't love it more. And I would never, God forbid, ignore my left hand. Just as much a part of me as my right hand. So too with another Jew, where each Jew is a different part of the body, so to speak. V'shali shalach, whatever's mine is yours. Why does it mean shali shalach? What's mine is yours. As he says, because you are me and I am you. Just like the right hand and the left hand. It's one person.
It's like communism.
It's interesting. I was talking with my wife the other day that there's a story of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, whose yahrzeit is this Shabbat, this Shabbos. And she was telling me she read a story of the previous Rebbe. I was familiar with the story that some Chassidim were once sitting on arguing what is the correct political system according to Torah. Is Torah communist, socialist, Democrat, capitalist? What is according to Torah, what do we believe in? What is the correct system?
It's a combination.
Oh, so the previous Rebbe said that, first of all, Torah is emes, Torah is truth. So any truth that you may find in any of these other systems, communism, socialism, capitalism, etc., and each one has its, you could bring proofs, by the way, from all different places in the Torah to support communism, or to support socialism, or to support capitalism. There's all different proofs for everything. But Torah is emes. Torah includes the truth within all of those different things. But it's not communism. No. It's not socialism. It's not capitalism either. It's Judaism. It's Yiddishkeit.
Wasn't like monarchy, like you have Melech HaMashiach, King David.
Okay, monarchy, yeah.
You have a Melech.
Yeah, right. It's true.
A good king, not a tyrant.
Right, it's like David Melech.
Like David
Melech and Melech HaMashiach.
And we learned the Chassidus, but that's because we learned in Shabbos a couple of weeks ago. That's because the king comes from Shevet Yehuda. Right. And Yehuda is bittul. It's not about himself. He's not the king so that he can be the boss. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's a little bit off topic, but interesting nevertheless. However, if chas v'shalom, person says, "I love every Jew so much except for him." However, if God forbid you harbor hatred, God forbid, for another Jew in your heart, interestingly he says, you didn't even do anything. You didn't even act hatefully. You didn't seek revenge on the person, nothing. Just in your heart. You didn't even act on it. You didn't try to trip the guy when he was going down the stairs. You just harbor hatred in your heart.
How do you classify hatred?
I don't know.
I mean, a lowered feeling or?
Do we have to give examples?
No, hatred is a range of different, severity, that was a severity. So they're talking about the least hatred is still hatred. So if you don't like to associate with that person, I don't feel comfortable with him.
That doesn't mean we have to be best buddies with everybody necessarily. I don't know.
But that's a question, my opinion.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we know for ourselves. I don't know. So Masha'en King
It's
just
you have to like everybody, you have to love,
right,
not like necessarily.
right.
You're stuck with them.
Masha'en King is just if you God forbid you hate, if you harbor hatred for another Jew in your heart, these are words we don't want to translate them. Powerful words. You, God forbid, are separating out of your soul. You're cutting off your own hand. That's what you're doing. Separating. Separating from yourself. It's as if you're cutting off your own body. You're separating. When you're pushing it away. You're chopping off your hand and saying, get out of here. I don't want you anymore. And you're pushing it away with your hatred. And you're removing any ratzon, any will from this person. Any interest. Now, God forbid, you, so to speak, cut off your hand, spiritually speaking. Now you have a pagam, you have a blemish. And you're missing a limb. You're missing part of yourself. Because remember, every Jew is interconnected, so you are me and I am you. It's like at the right hand and the left hand. It's all part of the same body. But nice a balmum, and the person becomes a balmum. What's a balmum? I got a blemish. Every limb includes 613. It's all the limbs are inter-included. That's because I include you and you include me. And but through the act of hatred, or not the act of hatred, the harboring hatred in one's heart, you're separating that other person from yourself. Why would you harm yourself? Why would you want to get rid of your own body part? You wouldn't want to do that. Then, if you are a balmum, if you have a blemish, you can't come close to Hashem. Someone who is a ba'almum, an animal that has a balmum, a person, and there's all sorts of, in this halachas discussed, all sorts of the Rambam, with this whole long discussion, which types of blemishes disqualify a kohen from serving, and so on and so forth, which type of blemishes disqualify an animal from being brought as a korban in the Beis HaMikdash, etc. But the point here is not to go into the details of which type of blemish. Any blemish that a person would have, any spiritual blemish, means that now, how are you going to come to Hashem? You want to come close, lahakriv, you want to come close to Hashem? You're a balmum. You have a blemish. What's the blemish? I hate him. That's the blemish. I hate him. I shouldn't even say it, right? That means that I have a problem. Doesn't mean he has a problem. I have a problem. That the infinite light of Hashem cannot endure. He can't handle a balmum. He can't handle you, chas v'sholom, if you are a balmum, if you have a blemish. Because the infinite light of Hashem includes you and him, the guy that you're harboring hatred in your heart for. And now you want to come close to Hashem. It's like you come to the king and you're like, imagine coming to an individual. Imagine coming to a parent. Say, I love all your kids are fantastic. Kids are great. Except for that one kid I don't like. Father would be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you love all my kids except for one of them? No, but you have a lot of kids. You have 10, 15 kids. Just one of them I don't like. The father, what are you talking about? What does that mean? Get out of here. You want to come for a Shabbos meal? You want to sleep over, stay in my house? What are you talking about? You don't like my kids. No, 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 no. I like your kids. Just one of them I don't like. That's crazy. The parent would say, get out of here. Who are you?
Shouldn't the father have Ahavas Yisroel?
Okay. True. And therefore, that's why there are numerous mitzvahs loisaseh, numerous negative commandments with regarding to bringing blemished animals, both in terms of the blemish for the Kohen himself, and karbonas blemishes in terms of the korban itself. We also have mitzvahs aseh, positive commandment. Lahakriv kol korban tomim, to bring a korban tomim, which means complete and whole. Kedichsiv tomim yalaratzen. Comments, questions?
Can we make a separation here between the mitzvah of Halacha Malka and davening? Because I think last week we were saying how you can't command me to love someone. You can command me to behave in a loving way, not love someone. But davening looks like behavior is irrelevant. I have to at least not have sina. I can't have a hatred for him.
Right.
So can we say there's two separate things here going on?
And I'm not clear, what are the two separate things
Two separate
exactly?
things. One is the mitzvah Halacha Malka, and one
Okay.
is tefillah. If I want to go up, my tefillah wants to rise up, I need to have this shleimut.
Yeah.
But as doing, as a mitzvah, I don't necessarily need to have this shleimut of
The person will still be
lacking.
lacking.
But at least, he'd be doing the mitzvah. He's showing people. If he's behaving in a loving way. He might hate someone, but still behave in a loving way. So he's doing mitzvah. But davening is a chisaron in davening. You see the distinction?
I think so.
Because what did you do with last week? Last week we were saying how you can't command love. You can tell me how to behave, not to get excited for tefillah. Emotions can't be commanded.
So
He didn't answer that yet, did he really?
didn't answer what?
How could you command that?
Okay, so that's really going to be the next part of the
That's
Maamer.
part, yeah.
Is going to talk about. We're going to get back to another question that we asked. The famous story of the Gemara of the potential convert, right? Right. So what does Hillel tell him?
That which is something don't do. I don't know the wording.
Right. That which is
It's not-
hateful to you, don't do to someone else.
Yeah.
What does it say in the Torah? V'yohavta l'recha kamoicha.
Like the positive one.
Love him. Love your neighbor as yourself. Hillel doesn't say that. He could have said, love your neighbor. But he says, you know the things you don't like? Don't do that to someone else. This expresses in the negative. That's going to be the next part, which maybe I don't know if we should start that now or wait till next week. We're approaching our time here. I don't know, regarding your question, are we saying there's two separate things here? Tefillah, where a prerequisite for tefillah would be Ahavas Yisroel, because if I don't have Ahavas Yisroel, then I'm blemished, and a blemished person cannot come close, cannot bring a korban, right? Korban means...
Well, in the case of tefillah, it affects the completeness of the tefillah. It doesn't, it reduces its impact or on yourself. There's a separation on some level between you and Hashem based upon your lack of
Right.
diminishment of your feeling. The word hate, I don't like the word. I don't like.
That's
it
good.
bothers- it
We shouldn't
bothers
like
me.
it.
It bothers me to even hear the word.
You hate
I
that
the
word. Yeah.
There's somebody who's don't hate it, nothing else except hatred. Somebody said, I'm not gonna tell you who. Guy's last name is Zimmerman, I'm not gonna get into it. At any rate, but the thing is, it's like, I have a problem when I hear that word, because I don't think any Jew really hates any other Jew, I don't think so.
Well, but it's interesting because look at the title of this Maamer. Iser Sinas Yisrael. And he quotes from the Chinuch. Shaloi lisnoi lechaveroi. Don't hate someone. You're right. It's a scary word.
No, but I don't know, I'm sure you talk to any one of us, I don't think any one of us would say hate in terms of somebody
I
else.
hope not.
I hope not, I don't think so.
I hope
don't
not.
particularly care for that person, that's a different way to express it. maybe in terms of, what they're saying in davening, when you're preparing to daven, you have to read a kamoko, maybe it means like, you shouldn't have a lowered feeling to it, maybe it's like very subtle, maybe it's not so hate, it's like a different, level,
So when do you cross that threshold? When you go from not liking to hate, like what's that?
I don't know, because I don't know what hate is, to be honest with you. I don't know I'm not familiar with, to be honest with you.
Like you said, some people you just don't get along with. Maybe you clash personality wise, or they just get on
I
your
prefer
nerves.
not to be in his presence. That's a different way.
That's nice.
I don't know.
Okay,
I can't
anyway,
tell you
maybe
what it
it's
is.
just a
I
trap.
think with everybody, it's also there's a certain individuality to it and a certain.
But the bottom line is what you say, if there's a blemish, if you have if you have an issue with another Jew, it'll affect your davening because, because it's affecting yourself, it's part of you. If you don't like somebody else, you're not liking part of yourself.
And you're separating. He uses very strong words. I mean, I would never say such a thing. I'm not it, but he says it. That you're effectively separating part of yourself.
You're separating yourself from yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, something like that.
And now you want to come close to Hashem, but you're a Balmum, not you, God forbid.
Interfering with because Hashem loves every Jew. He loves every Jew, and you have this less than that lack of that feeling toward another Jew, then that'll affect your relation with Hashem.
It's like the mashal I gave of the father, and the person says, "I like all your kids except for one of them." What are you talking about? I don't know. I think that the Ahavas Yisroel is explaining here. He's telling us what is Ahavas Yisroel. How do you do the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel? And he's telling us how to do the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel. And for that, you have to know some Kabbalah. You have to know that we are one unit. We're like all one person. It's not just about tefillah. It's almost like tefillah that was like tacked on.
Explain that idea.
I think so. The understanding of Ahavas Yisroel explains also why, by the way, why you have to accept the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel before davening, and not later in the day. I think so, but that it's integral either way. Because do you want to live a life, chas v'shalom, of of lacking, of deficiency, of missing what is really just part of yourself? Okay, we have to think about this more. Think about it more. But in Mitzvah Hashem, next week we'll continue chapter 2, which takes a whole other direction, and we're going to explain about Hillel, why Hillel expressed the mitzvah in the negative, as opposed to emulating the pasuk in the Torah, which says the positive. The Torah doesn't say not to hate, by the way. It doesn't say not to hate. It says love.
Right.
But Hillel switches it around. What you don't like, don't do to him. So we're going to discuss why he chose his words carefully. Hillel was a smart man. He chose his words carefully. So he intentionally expressed it in the negative, and we're going to discuss why, God willing, next time. That's Hashem.
Thank you.
Chaim, everyone.
I don't know.